The operator stands near the turnstiles of a crowded transit hub, coffee going cold in his hand, watching a river of strangers pour past him. He is not looking for a weapon. He is not looking for a threat. He is looking at one man, a man in a gray jacket who glances at the departure board, then keeps walking, swallowed by the crowd in 3 seconds. The operator never speaks to him. He never follows him. He simply looks once and lets the face sink in. 4 days later, in a different city, in a different crowd, the same man steps off an escalator. The operator recognizes him instantly. However, this is not a story about catching a killer. It is not about reading a stranger's intentions or spotting the liar in the room. This is something quieter and stranger. This is about how a trained human being can take one face out of a moving crowd, lock it into memory, and pull it back out days or weeks later with frightening accuracy. The skill is called face memory, or identity retention, and it is one of the oldest and least understood tools in the special operations world. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how they do it, what part of it you can actually learn, and where raw human talent takes over. If that idea grips you the way it grips us, subscribe now, because this channel exists for the people who want the real tradecraft, not the movie version. Start with the problem the operator is actually solving. Most of us think we are good with faces. We are not. The average human brain is built to recognize people we already know well. Our family, our friends, the faces we have seen 1,000 times. But ask it to remember a total stranger, seen once for 2 seconds in a busy station, and it collapses. Eyewitness research has shown for decades that ordinary people are unreliable at identifying strangers they saw only briefly, especially under stress, especially in a crowd. The face blurs, the memory rewrites itself. We remember the jacket and forget the man, so the first thing an operator learns is humility. Your natural face memory is weaker than you think, and it gets worse the moment fear or excitement grabs your attention. So how do they fight that weakness? The answer begins with where you look. An untrained person, glancing at a stranger, soaks up the loud, obvious things. The hairstyle, the glasses, the hat, the color of the coat. The problem is that every one of those can change in an afternoon. Hair gets cut, glasses come off, hats go in a bag, coats get swapped. If your memory of a man is built on his beanie and his beard, he becomes invisible the second he shaves and walks out bareheaded. The operator is trained to do the opposite, to look past the surface and lock onto what cannot be changed. This is the core idea, and it has a name in the tradecraft world. You encode the immutable features first. Immutable, spelled I-M-M-U-T-A-B-L-E, simply means the things that do not change. The bone structure underneath the surface, the shape of the skull and the outline of the face, whether it is round, square, oval, or long. The set of the ears, how high they sit, how far they stick out, the shape of the lobe. The bridge of the nose, its width and its angle. The brow and how heavy it sits over the eyes. The jawline. And one feature operators prize above almost all others, the distance between the eyes, because that spacing is fixed by the architecture of the skull, and a person cannot fake it, hide it, or grow out of it. But there is a turn here, and it matters. Knowing which features to study is not the same as remembering them. You could stare at a man's ears for an hour and still lose him in a crowd. Therefore, the operator does something that feels almost childish until you understand why it works. They turn the face into words. This is the describe a face method, and it is the engine of the whole skill. The instant the operator clocks the target, they begin building a short verbal label in their head. Not a poem, not a paragraph, a tight, ugly, functional line. Narrow oval face, ears flat to the head, wide gap between the eyes, heavy left brow, thin upper lip. Spoken silently, in plain language, in under 2 seconds. Why does turning a face into a sentence help? Because human memory is far better at holding onto language and meaning than at holding onto a raw flash of an image. A picture in your mind fades and warps. A short verbal description gives that memory a skeleton to hang on, hooks that survive when the mental snapshot dissolves. You are not memorizing the face like a photograph. You are translating it into a code your memory can actually keep. There is a second technique stacked on top of that one, and it is even older than the tradecraft. It is association. The operator anchors the new, unknown face to a face they already know cold. The stranger at the turnstiles has a jaw like an uncle, eyes set like a teacher from school, a nose like a famous actor. By tying the unfamiliar to the deeply familiar, the operator borrows the brain's enormous existing storage for people it already knows. The new face stops being a fragile memory floating alone and becomes a note pinned to one that is already rock solid. This is why some of the best observers quietly mutter a nickname for a target in their head. The nickname is a handle, and the handle is association doing its work. There is also a reason this approach fights the grain of how your brain naturally sees a face. Face recognition researchers have found the brain tends to process a familiar face holistically, as one single whole, rather than as a checklist of separate parts. That style is wonderful for people you already know, where your memory fuses the whole face into one instant flash of recognition. But it is almost useless for a stranger seen once, because there is no stored whole to match against yet. So the operator deliberately breaks the face into parts, forcing a slow, feature-by-feature read the brain would never do on its own. It feels unnatural, because it is, and that is exactly why it has to be drilled. Now, encoding a face is only half the discipline. The other half is doing it fast, and doing it once. In the real world, the operator does not get to stand and stare. The target is moving. The window is a single glance, maybe a second or two, often while the operator is pretending to read a phone or check a board. So the skill has to be drilled until that whole sequence, look, find the immutable features, build the verbal label, anchor to a known face, happens in one smooth pass. This is single glance encoding, and it is brutal to train, because the instinct under time pressure is to grab the easy surface details and run. The operator has to override that instinct every time, which raises the obvious question, how on earth do you train something that happens inside your own head in under 2 seconds? And here we reach one of the oldest and most famous answers in the entire world of observation tradecraft. A drill so old it has a name from a novel written over 100 years ago. It is called Kim's Game. The name comes from the book Kim, written by Rudyard Kipling and published at the very start of the 20th century. In the story, a young boy is trained for intelligence work by a jeweler who plays a game with him. He lays out a tray of small objects, jewels, stones, oddments, lets the boy look for a short moment, then covers the tray and demands a full accounting. What was there? How many? What color? What shape? Where? Each round the tray grows harder, the look grows shorter, the boy's recall grows sharper. That game leapt off the page into the real training of scouts, and from there into the kit bag of special operations instructors around the world. Generations of scout snipers and reconnaissance soldiers have been raised on Kim's Game, because a sniper's entire job is to look at a landscape once, remember every detail, and report it perfectly hours later. So what does a tray of jewels have to do with a face in a crowd? Everything. Kim's Game trains the exact muscle the face skill demands. It teaches the brain to take in a scene in a single deliberate look, to decide in that instant what matters, to encode it into words, and to hold it after the scene is gone. Run that drill for years with objects, then point the same trained attention at a human face, and you have an observer who can do with a stranger what the boy did with the tray. The face becomes another scene to read once and keep. Modern instructors adapt it directly, flashing photographs of faces for a second or two, then covering them and asking for the immutable features back. Shape, ears, brow, eye spacing. The same loop, every time. If you have made it this far, you are already one of us. Cadets get every video 24 hours early and a badge in the comments. The link is below. And there is one more layer the best instructors add, straight from how memory itself works. It is not enough to encode a face once and walk away. Memory fades on a curve, and a face locked in this morning starts to crumble by tonight, unless it is revisited. So an operator on a long observation will quietly rehearse the target across the day, pulling the verbal label back up, picturing the immutable features again, refreshing the anchor to the known face. Each rehearsal drives the memory deeper. The way a phone number you repeat a few times survives, while one you hear once is gone. Cognitive scientists call this spacing, the simple fact that a memory revisited at intervals lasts far longer than one crammed in a single look. The operator is not just remembering the face, they are maintaining it, like a fire they refuse to let go out. But here is where honesty has to enter the room, because this is exactly where the movies lie to you. Everything I have described so far is a skill. It can be taught. It can be drilled. A motivated person with good instruction and a lot of repetition genuinely gets better at remembering strangers' faces. That part is real. However, there is a ceiling, and not everyone's ceiling sits in the same place. Because alongside the trainable skill, there is something rarer and stranger going on in a small slice of the population. They are called super recognizers. The word was coined by scientists in the late 2000s to describe people sitting at the very top of the face memory scale. These are individuals who can recognize a face they saw once, briefly, years ago, in a completely different context, and be certain it is the same person. They will spot the cashier from a shop 2 towns over, glimpsed for 10 seconds a decade earlier, walking past in a crowd. They will recognize a face under a beard it never had, behind glasses it never wore, aged by years and lit badly through a dirty lens. For most of us, that is impossible. For a super recognizer, it is simply Tuesday. And the crucial, almost uncomfortable fact is that this ability appears to be largely something you are born with. It runs along a spectrum. At one end sit people with face blindness, who struggle to recognize even close friends. At the other end sit the super recognizers. Most of humanity clusters in the unremarkable middle. This is not folklore. It has been studied seriously. Much of the research associated with the psychologist Josh Davis at the University of Greenwich in London, who has spent years testing and documenting these exceptional individuals. And the most striking part of the story is what one police force decided to do with them. The London Metropolitan Police, the force often known simply as the Met, built a dedicated super recognizer unit. They identified officers with this rare natural gift, tested them, and aimed them at a very specific problem. Hours of grainy closed-circuit television footage. CCTV cameras capture oceans of low-quality, badly lit, partial faces. Ordinary software and ordinary officers drown in them. But a super recognizer can watch that footage and put a name to a face no one else can place, matching a blurred figure from one camera to a known offender from a custody photograph seen long before. Reports credited these individuals with identifying enormous numbers of suspects the rest of the system had missed entirely. A handful of human beings, doing with their eyes what banks of computers struggled to do. And the unsettling part is that these officers often could not explain how. They did not run a checklist. They simply looked at the broken footage and knew, the way you know your own brother across a dark room. The very thing the operator spends years drilling toward, these people were handed at birth. So we are left with 2 truths sitting side by side, and you have to hold both at once. The first is that face memory is a trainable skill. The encoding method, the immutable features, the verbal label, the association to a known face, the single glance drill, Kim's game, all of it genuinely raises an ordinary person's ability. The operator is not born able to lock a stranger into memory from one look. The operator is drilled into it. The second truth is an innate ceiling, and the super recognizers were simply born standing on a higher floor. No amount of Kim's game turns an average brain into a Met super recognizer. The skill lifts everyone. Talent decides how high the lift can go. And that is the real, honest shape of it. The part the slick training videos never tell you. The tradecraft works, but it sits on top of a natural ability that is not evenly handed out. Which leaves a genuinely open question, and I want you to answer it in the comments, because there is no settled science here. If face memory is mostly something you are born with, then are the world's elite observers, the ones the police and the military rely on, made by their training or simply found by it? Did the drilling create them, or did it just reveal who already had the gift? Tell me where you land, and tell me why, because this argument runs through the heart of how these units are built. Official members get the parts that do not survive the public versions, the names and the details we cut before publish. The door is below. So the next time you stand in a crowd and a stranger's face slides past and vanishes, remember what is possible. Somewhere, someone looked at you exactly that way, once, and remembered.